What if your own mother blamed you, just to protect her lie? What if the people who were supposed to love you simply erased you instead? And when everything collapsed, they didn't apologize. They just blamed you again. This isn't just a story about being left behind. It's a story about silence, betrayal, and the quiet strength it takes to walk away from someone you once called mom. Stay with Uses. We follow Logan's journey from invisible sun to someone who finally stood up and said, "Enough." I woke up to an empty house. My stepmom, my half-brothers, everyone was gone. No note, no warning. It was a Thursday morning in late June, the kind of summer day when the sun pours in too early and the birds are too loud. I rolled out of bed around 9, still groggy from a late night of video games and scrolling. My dad was out of town for work that week, and I was staying at my mom's house in Boulder, Colorado. As usual, the house was quiet, but this quiet was different. No sound of breakfast being made. No chatter between my stepbrothers. Not even the low hum of the television in the background. I figured maybe they were just sleeping in or had gone out for groceries. But then I walked into the kitchen. Empty. No cereal bowls. No coffee mug. No signs of life. The dining table was spotless. The chairs pushed in perfectly. I checked my Finino missed calls. No texts. That's when my gut tightened. I walked through the rest of the house, calling out, "Mom?" No answer. I even peeked into the garage. The car was gone. Both of them. At first, I thought something had happened. Maybe an emergency? Maybe someone was in the hospital? But no, there was nothing on the news. No calls from anyone. I opened the Find My iPhone app and saw my mom's location pinging about 200 miles away south, toward Arizona. That's when it hit me. They went on vacation. Without me. I stood there in the kitchen for a long time, barefoot on the cold tile floor, just processing. I tried calling her straight to voicemail. I tried again. Still nothing. Not a single word. Not a single heads up. Not even a fake excuse. I wasn't angry yet. I wasn't even sad. I was just confused. There had been no mention of a trip. No suitcases lying around. No whispered plans. Nothing. I opened the fridge. Everything looked untouched. No leftovers labeled for me. No snacks set aside. It wasn't like they forgot. It was like they never planned to include me at all. And then the weirdest thought crept in. What if they hoped I wouldn't notice? It sounds crazy now, but in that moment, it felt like the most logical explanation. Maybe they were tired of pretending I belonged. Maybe they just wanted a break from the kid who didn't fit their picture. I sat on the couch in the living room, the only place that still felt like me, and stared at nothing for a long time. The silence was deafening. And in that silence, one question played over and over in my head. How do you leave your own child behind and not say a word? Before Jeffrey and his boys moved in, it was just me and my mom. We weren't perfect, but we were solid. She used to call me her little compass, like I somehow helped her navigate through life. She'd leave sticky notes on the fridge with doodles, send me surprise texts during school lunch breaks, and make French toast every Sunday morning. It wasn't grand, but it felt like home. That started to change the moment Jeffrey entered the picture. At first, I tried to be open. I wanted her to be happy. I was 14 when they started dating, and I remember how nervous she was before introducing us. She had curled her hair, wore a nice sweater, and kept asking me to just be nice. I promised I would. And I was. Jeffrey shook my hand firmly that night. His smile didn't quite reach his eyes, but I gave him the benefit of the doubt. He asked me about school, about video games, about my favorite movies. I answered politely. He laughed at the right times. I thought maybe, just maybe, this could work. But by the third visit, something changed. He stopped talking to me, not out of anger. It was worse than that. It was deliberate silence. He'd greet my mom, nod at the dog, even ask Alexa about the weather, but not a word for me. No eye contact, no acknowledgement. Like I wasn't even in the room. At first, I thought it was a fluke. Maybe he had a rough day. Maybe I had said something unknowingly. I asked my mom if I'd done something wrong. She brushed it off. Jeffrey just needs time. He's adjusting. Except he didn't adjust. When they got married and he moved in with his sons Mason, 15, and Jake, 12, the air in the house changed completely. They were polite in a creepy sort of way. Quiet, distant, never looked me in the eye. It didn't take long to realize they'd been told not to talk to me. So I became a ghost in my own home. Breakfasts were awkward. Dinners were silent. I'd walk into the room and conversation would die. It wasn't bullying. It wasn't loud. It was the kind of quiet that eats at you slowly. Death by emotional erosion. I remember one night, Mason accidentally left his math homework on the coffee table. I helped solve 2 problems and left sticky notes to guide him through the rest. The next day, he threw them in the trash in front of me without saying a word. I went to my mom again, asked her, begged her to talk to Jeffrey. She sighed, tired. Said something like, "Logan, I've made so many sacrifices for you. Can't you just try a little harder?" It hurt, because I had tried. I never yelled, never complained, never got into fights with the boys. I kept my room clean, helped with groceries, did everything a kid is supposed to do. But it never seemed enough. I started dreading my time at her house. I would count the days until it was time to switch back to Dad's. At his place, I felt seen. I wasn't babied or anything. Dad is a pretty quiet guy, but he looked me in the eye when I spoke. He asked follow-up questions. He noticed when I was off. That alone felt like a luxury. But still, I kept going back to Mom's. Why? Because I missed her. I missed our old routine. I kept hoping that maybe if I played along long enough, she'd see how hard I was trying, that she'd step in and say, "Hey, this isn't okay. He's still my son." But that day never came. Instead, she'd say things like, "Jeffrey is just more reserved," or "his kids have been through a lot." As if I hadn't. As if my hurt didn't matter. The hardest part wasn't Jeffrey's coldness. It wasn't the boy's silence. It was my mother's refusal to see it. Or maybe, her choice not to. When your own mother doesn't stand up for you, you start questioning everything. Not just them, but yourself. Like maybe I really was the problem. Maybe I really was hard to love. And still I kept quiet. I stayed polite. I walked on eggshells for 2 years. All I ever wanted was to be part of the family. But the truth was, they'd already built one. And I wasn't in it. It was around 10 a.m. when I finally got through to my mom. She picked up on the 3rd ring, sounding distracted. I asked her where everyone was, why the house was empty. There was a pause. Then, as if she were talking about going to Target, she said, "Oh, Logan, we decided to take a little road trip down to the Grand Canyon. Just for the week. Just for the week." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I asked her flat out, "You left for vacation and didn't tell me?" She chuckled, like I was being overdramatic. "Come on, Logan, you're not a baby. It's not a big deal. We just needed a little time away. I figured you'd enjoy the house to yourself. You're 16, not 6. No apology, no explanation. Just that strange, condescending calm she uses when she doesn't want to be the bad guy. I told her I was upset, that it hurt not to even be asked if I wanted to come. She sighed and said, "We didn't think you'd care. Besides, Jeffrey booked everything last minute. It was kind of spontaneous." That stung. They didn't think I'd care. She kept talking, saying something about trusting me to take care of the house while they were gone, like she was doing me a favor by leaving me behind. I told her she should have at least mentioned it. She got quiet, then said, "Logan, don't make this into a thing. We just wanted to enjoy some family time. We'll talk when I get back." And she hung up, just like that. I stared at my phone in disbelief. Not only had they left me behind without saying a word, but now I was being made to feel guilty for having a reaction. For not being cool with being excluded from the kind of trip families bond over. The silence of the house felt suffocating. The living room echoed with absence. I walked past the hallway, saw the small pile of shoes left by the door nun were mine. I went into the bathroom. Even their toothbrushes were gone. They packed everything. They planned this. They made decisions, and I was never a part of any of it. I started pacing, rage mixed with confusion in my chest like oil in water. Was I being punished for something? Was this some kind of message? Or worse, did they just forget to factor me in? I knew Jeffrey never liked me. I knew his boys never spoke to me. But my mom, my own mother? I texted her later that day to tell her I didn't feel okay staying in the house alone. I wasn't scared, I just didn't feel like I belonged there anymore. She didn't respond. A few hours later, she sent a short text. Please stop. I'm trying to relax. We'll talk when I'm back. That was the moment it shifted. Up until then, I'd tried to make sense of everything through the lens of patience. Maybe she was overwhelmed. Maybe Jeffrey was pulling strings. Maybe it wasn't what it looked like, but it was. It was exactly what it looked like. I was inconvenient, a leftover from a life she had outgrown. I didn't fit the picture anymore, so she cropped me out. I walked around the house for the rest of the day like I didn't live there. Everything looked familiar, but nothing felt like mine. Even the photo frames on the wall, all newly updated, featured her, Jeffrey, and the boys, smiling, at Yellowstone, at the beach, on the 4th of July. There were no photos of me. I checked the family group chaton I was technically part of, but never active in, and scrolled up. Sure enough, there were dozens of messages and plans about the road trip, but all from the past week. I hadn't received a single notification. I wasn't removed, I was muted. They didn't want me to know. And suddenly, I wasn't just hurt. I was angry. Not throw a tantrum angry. Not yell into a pillow angry. This was deeper. Like something had finally snapped. Because being forgotten is painful, but being intentionally erased, that's betrayal. I picked up my phone and called my dad. I didn't even think twice. He picked up immediately, asked if everything was okay. I told him I needed to come stay with him for a while. He didn't ask why. He just said, "I'll be there in 2 hours." I started packing before I even hung up. My dad showed up right on time, just like he always did. He didn't honk or text, just pulled up to the curb, got out, and helped me carry my bag. No questions. No commentary. Just presence. On the drive back to Fort Collins, I stared out the window, watching the highway blur by. I felt hollow, like I'd left a version of myself back at my mom's house, and now I was floating untethered, unclaimed. I didn't talk much until we pulled into the driveway. That's when he turned the engine off and looked at me. "You want to tell me what's going on?" he asked gently. I nodded, but the words didn't come right away. We sat in the kitchen, just the two of us, same as always. He poured me a glass of lemonade like he used to when I was a kid. I took one sip, then I just unraveled. It started slow, just a tight throat and a clenched jaw. But once I opened my mouth, everything came out. I told him about the silence. The way Jeffrey never acknowledged me. The way his sons followed his lead. How meals at that house felt like funerals where no one was mourning. How Mom always told me to understand and be mature. I told him about the photo frames, the deleted messages, the forced smiles, the whispers that stopped when I walked into the room. Then I told him about the trip, how they left without a word. How she made me feel like I was the problem for reacting. How she didn't pick up when I needed her. How she told me to stop making a thing out of it when I was just asking why I didn't matter. I told him everything. Every moment I had swallowed. Every word I had buried. And then I cried. Not the single tear down the cheek kind of crying. This was full body, can't breathe, chest aching crying. The kind that comes when you've held things in too long. The kind you don't even realize you're capable of until it's too late to hold it back. My dad didn't interrupt. He didn't try to fix it with empty words. He just sat there, hand on my shoulder, letting me fall apart, letting me be a kid again just for a moment. When I finally caught my breath, I looked at him and whispered, "Why doesn't she want me anymore?" His eyes softened, but his face tensed. "Logan," he said quietly, "this isn't about you not being enough. This is about someone else not knowing how to love you properly." That hit me hard. Because for years I had twisted myself in knots trying to earn something that should have been given freely. I always thought if I was kinder, quieter, easier to live with, she'd step in. She'd remind Jeffrey I was her son, that I mattered. But all she did was defend him and expect me to do the emotional math number 16-year-olds should be doing. I asked him, "Did I do something wrong?" He shook his head slowly. "No, son. You did something brave. You kept showing up. You kept loving her. That's not weakness. That's strength." I didn't realize how badly I needed to hear that until he said it. The next few days were quiet but comforting. He let me sleep in, cooked breakfast, played jazz music in the background like he used to. It wasn't a big gesture, it was real. It was what home was supposed to feel like. But inside, I was still hurting. Not because of Jeffrey, not even because of the boys, because of her. Because I missed the woman who used to sit beside me during thunderstorms, rubbing my back and telling me stories until I fell asleep. The one who used to cheer at every middle school band concert, even when I only played 3 notes on the triangle. The one who made me believe, even in the worst moments, that I was her entire world. And now, I was her afterthought, a name she left off the itinerary, a number she muted. That kind of abandonment doesn't scream, it whispers, and the whisper says, "You don't matter anymore." I wanted to believe it wasn't intentional, that she didn't mean to hurt me, but intention doesn't erase impact. She may not have screamed at me, hit me, or thrown me out, but she left me emotionally stranded, over and over again, and I kept coming back, thinking maybe this time she'd reach for me. Maybe this time she'd see the hurt in my eyes, and care enough to ask, but she never did. It's a strange kind of grief mourning someone who's still alive. Mourning a relationship that technically still exists but is long past saving. That week at my dad's, I learned something painful but necessary. You can miss someone and still choose to walk away. It was a quiet Tuesday morning when my dad came into my room, coffee in one hand, a manila folder in the other. He sat on the edge of my bed and said, "Logan, I think we need to talk." I sat up, bracing myself. He'd been calm and supportive since I arrived, but I knew that look steady, serious. Something had shifted. "I've been talking to a lawyer," he said plainly. "Not to start a war, but to give you some options. Because this?" He gestured around, at the emotional wreckage I'd brought with me. "This can't be your normal anymore." I didn't say anything. I didn't have to. He already knew. Then he pulled out a printed email and handed it to me. "It's from Jeffrey," he said. I blinked. "He emailed you?" My dad shook his head. "Number." "He emailed your mom. She accidentally forwarded it to the school by mistake. She was requesting records for the boys, and this came attached. Their office called me when they noticed your name in it." I unfolded the paper and began reading. It was a message from Jeffrey to my mom, sent just a month before. The subject line read, "Final decision about Logan." In it, Jeffrey outlined his frustration with my presence in the house. He accused me of being manipulative, disrespectful, and passive-aggressive. He claimed I was intentionally turning my mom against him, and that I had made hostile comments about his late mother, calling her a burden and his sons spoiled monsters. I froze. None of that was true. I'd never even talked about his mom, let alone insulted her. And his boys? I didn't like them, but I never said a word. I flipped the page, and that's when the truth came out. There was a response from my mom 3 paragraphs down saying, "Jeffrey, I never told Logan any of this. He doesn't know I used him as the reason you couldn't move your mother in. I just didn't know how to say no without hurting you." It felt like the air left the room. My own mom had made up lies about me, not small lies damaging, personal ones. She used me as the scapegoat for why she didn't want her sick mother-in-law living with us. Instead of saying, "I can't handle this," she told Jeffrey that I was the problem. I was the reason he treated me like I didn't exist because he thought I was cruel. Because my mom told him so. I dropped the pages in my lap. My dad said nothing for a moment. Then he leaned forward and said, "You didn't deserve that." I didn't respond. My throat tightened too much to speak. "She could have been honest with him," he continued. "But she chose to protect herself. And you paid the price." It was a strange kind of clarity, like finding the missing piece of a puzzle you didn't even know was broken. Suddenly, it all made sense. The cold shoulders, the strange shift after they moved in, the refusal to explain. I wasn't imagining it. I wasn't overreacting. I'd been set up, quietly, slowly, over years. "She told him I was dangerous," I finally whispered. "To protect her lie." My dad nodded solemnly. "And that's why you're not going back there." We spent the rest of that week gathering everything we needed. School records, doctor's notes, even texts I'd saved from my mom over the year-songs where she dismissed how I felt, told me to suck it up, reminded me of her sacrifices. It was exhausting, but weirdly empowering. For once, I wasn't just surviving the situation, I was reclaiming it. One night, as we scanned old files, my dad looked at me and said, "You've spent 3 years walking on eggshells. Time to stop. You get to live in a home where you're seen, heard, and safe." And that's when it finally clicked. This wasn't about punishing her. This was about choosing me. It didn't take long for things to fall apart. Less than 2 weeks after the email leak, I got a notification from my school account. My official residence had been changed to my dad's address. No fanfare, no dramatic confrontation, just a quiet update like someone somewhere had decided, enough. My mom didn't call. She didn't text. She knew. But I found out from a cousin that something bigger had happened. Jeffrey had filed for divorce. At first, I didn't believe it. I thought maybe it was just a rumor or something blown out of proportion. But then the lawyer confirmed it. In his filing, Jeffrey stated irreparable trust issues and concealment of material truths as the grounds. Translation: she lied to him about me. And that lie unraveled everything. Apparently, the moment he learned the truth that I never insulted his mother, never spoke badly about his sons, never tried to sabotage anything, snapped. Not in anger. In disgust. He'd been treating a child like a ghost, like a threat, for 3 years, based on stories that weren't even real. And the one person he had trusted most, my mom, had let him do it. He emailed me a few days later. It was long, thoughtful, apologetic. He said he didn't expect forgiveness, and he understood if I never wanted to speak to him again. He admitted to making assumptions, failing to ask questions, and letting his own pain blind him to mine. He ended the message with, "You didn't deserve any of this." I believed lies because they were easier than facing the truth. I'm sorry. I didn't reply. I wasn't ready, but I appreciated that he said it. My mom, on the other hand, didn't reach out not at first, but she started posting cryptic quotes online. Things like "you never realize what you had until it's gone" and "family means forgiveness." People sent me screenshots. I didn't engage. Eventually, she messaged my dad, begged him to talk to Jeffrey, said she was losing everything her husband, her Sonan, needed help putting it back together. My dad's response was short, something like, "You lost those things when you chose to protect yourself over your child. Don't ask me to fix what you broke." She called a few days later. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail, her voice shaking. "Logan, I never meant for any of this to happen. Please call me." But the thing is, she did mean for it to happen. She made decisions. Calculated ones. She chose to lie instead of telling the truth. She chose to let me be isolated, ignored, and erase a just to maintain control. And when it all came crashing down, she didn't apologize. She panicked. She tried to fix the optics, not the damage. The custody hearing was quiet. I didn't have to testify. The evidence spoke for itself. The emails, the texts, the reports from school counselors who had noticed my anxiety spike during every stay with my mom. Her lawyer tried to delay things, but the outcome was inevitable. My dad got full custody. I wasn't forced to go back. I wasn't asked to try again or be the bigger person. I was free. The court granted my mom visitation rights, but only with my consent, which I didn't give. For the first time in years, I slept without clenching my jaw. I started playing basketball again. I reconnected with old friends. I applied for a summer program in digital media and got accepted. Little things, but they felt huge, like I was finally living in a world where I mattered. Every now and then, someone in the family would ask, "Have you talked to her?" And I'd just shake my head. I didn't feel hate. I didn't even feel anger anymore. Just distance and peace. Some justice comes in courtrooms. Mine came in clarity, in freedom, in silence that didn't feel heavy anymore. I used to think betrayal was loud. Slam doors, shouting matches, fights that ended with someone storming out. But now I know it's not always like that. Sometimes betrayal is quiet. It's in the silences that grow too long, the birthdays half forgotten, the glances that no longer carry warmth. Sometimes, it's in the moment you realize someone stopped fighting for you. When I was younger, I believed my mom and I were unbreakable. We didn't have the perfect life, but we had each other. Or so I thought. Now, when people ask about my family, I pause. Not because I'm ashamed, but because I don't have a clean answer anymore. My mom is still alive, still technically my parent, but in so many ways that relationship ended long before the custody ruling. It ended when she made me the villain in her story to protect herself. And the worst part? I spent years trying to earn her love, thinking I had to fix something that was never mine to fix. There's something no one tells you about healing. It doesn't always come with closure. My mom never gave me the apology I deserved. Not truly. She didn't sit down and say, Logan, I lied. I failed you. Instead, she sent me quotes about forgiveness and asked me to come back as if this were just a misunderstanding. But it wasn't. It was a choice. Her choice. And now, I've made mine. I choose to surround myself with people who see me, who ask how I'm doing and actually wait for an answer. I choose honesty, even when it's hard. I choose to protect my peace, because I know what it's like to live without it. I don't hate her. I don't wish her pain. I just no longer carry the weight of trying to make her proud. That version of Metha Boy desperate to be loved by someone who made him feel invisible, that boy's gone now. In his place stands someone new. Someone who knows that love without respect isn't love at all. Someone who understands that being family doesn't excuse betrayal. Someone who, finally, knows that he deserves better.